Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. This is the third iteration of the resin testing gauntlet featuring SUNLU today. We already tested one of the resins, the SUNLU ABS-like, and this time we have the standard, the water washable, and the latest and greatest and still under embargo, the SUNLU Toughness. Full disclaimer, these were sent to me for free, I did not have to pay for them, but I can say whatever I want, so I'm going to be as unbiased as possible. Enough talking, let's do the smell test. To compare it, I'm going to use the Anycubic Eco Resin because I found the Anycubic Eco Resin to be a very bad smelling resin. It is really annoying. If you're going to use this, use some ventilation. Yeah, very resiny. It's a bad word, I know, but it stinks. Let's do the SUNLU Standard resin. One thing to say, the ABS-like, it's not on the table. We tested it on the first video. The ABS-like was very soft of a smell. I hope the rest of these bottles are going to do just the same. It's a different smell. It's a bit more like the tenacious one. It's not as bad as the Anycubic Eco Resin. It's not super great. It's different. It doesn't have a typical resin smell. It's a bit softer on the nose. You can almost say that it's a bit perfumed. I can almost smell nothing from this bottle. This is super soft smelling. It's a lot like the ABS. It's not pungent in the nose. And then we have the SUNLU Toughness. Yeah, this is a bit more like the standard resin. It has like a perfumed smell, but comparing to all the rest of the other iterations, we have tested the Tech, the Conjure, we have some Anycubic Eco, and the SUNLU is by far the best smelling resin out there so far. Then let's talk about the bottles. I have to say that these are by far the best pouring resin bottles I have so far. You don't get the drooping along the side like you have with the Tech bottles. It's nice and flat, so you can stack a lot of them next to each other, which is great for storage. If you have these round bottles, you can already see that it will take a lot more space in the width, and then you have some empty spots that you cannot fill up with other bottles. I think I really like these flat designed packages. It's really nice for storage. Let's talk about the warping. The water washable is terrible. As you can see, this is a big potato chip. These are all warped potato chips. Then we have the standard resin. This is way better, but still we have some warping. It's all a bit warped. Then let's go to the toughness. A lot less warping on the toughness. This is almost as flat as it can be. It is straight, which you cannot say about this one. This is as crooked as it can be. This is a bit less crooked, but it's still curved like a potato chip. One thing to know, these blocks are printed square, and you can see that there's a high spot right over here, and this was the side the closest to the build plate. We have some warping on this block, very nice on the toughness side. So warping on the toughness is not an issue. Warping on these two is definitely an issue. If you want to print fine stuff like these things, then you're better off printing with the toughness or the ABS-like. The ABS-like was just as good, maybe even better than the toughness. The water washable and the standard resins aren't all that good. Then printing all of them was really good. The toughest to remove supports was on the toughness. The water washable and the standard resin, they almost came loose just by themselves. We did not have print failures on these ones. We get some peeling on this one. As you might see, this has a bit of resin missing because of the delamination we had, but I think this sample is still going to be valid, as this is the weak point of the stick. All the rest was printed great. Then we printed this bust. This is from the SUNLU Toughness. All the details just came out great. This is a beautiful bust, and there is almost no signs of layer lines. We have some right here on the hat. We have some layer lines just ever so slightly, but I think that this is an awesome resin to print with. Next, we have the water washable. This is also a very nice print, no defects at all. The support removal was really easy. The print details are super fine. We get some layer lines here on top of his head. This is printed just as great as the toughness resin. So this is also very good if you want to print miniatures with it. This is the standard resin. also on the same place, but it's very noticeable because this is some kind of a translucent resin. We have great print details, there are no defects, and support removing was really easy. They almost came off by themselves, just pulling it off the plate. So all three of these resins are great if you want to print miniatures. If you want to do thin mold stuff and they have to be very accurate, then I would suggest to go to the Toughness or the ABS lag, as the water washable and the standard resins are going to be prone to warping. Now we have printer accuracy. I'm going to try and turn this bolt on. Ever so slightly, we can catch some threads. So it looks like the print settings are great. We have a good resolution on the bolt and the nut. Great print. The water washable, we're going to do the same. Oh my god, guys, this is the first one, the first and the complete resin testing gauntlet that we just can't freaking screw in. Oh my god, look at this, guys. I'm just shocked. This is awesome. This is the perfect print in dimensions. So the water washable, we nailed it on the exposure. They all had the same exposure. This is the first bolt and nut that just screws in just like this. Then last, the SUNLU Toughness. Nope. It's also threading on, but not... Oh, wait. It's also threading on, but not as far as the water washable. So this is great. These resins are great. These are by far the best result and printer resolution I ever had. So I can get about halfway into the nut. This is great. Well, this is already looking very good. Now it's time to go down into the testing machine. This is going to be the last test. We're going to drill it with a 6.8 and tap it with an M8. First, I'm going to pre-drill it with a 4mm. And we have a fail at 19 Newton. It's trying, but it's slipping. Yeah, it's done. Comparing the three side by side, this is the side where we drilled the holes. Not a lot of blowout, a little bit of blowout, and a lot of blowout. On the back side, we can see no blowout at all. A fair bit of it right over here. And the other one was just one big, massive, epic failure. Very weak, a lot like the Anycubic Eco resin. Well, that was the testing. One thing I want to add is that in the packaging material there were some filters to strain your resin, and I really advise that if you change up your resin, you filter it through this mesh. There's always going to be some junk in your resin and then you get some punctures. All these resins printed fine in a cold temperature except for the toughness. So for the toughness you want to be in a hot room or heat up the vat or enclosure like I do and preheat the resin up front. So the way I do my testing is I put all these resins into my heated enclosure. I heat them up to about 40 degrees. I pour it into the vat, and then at printing time they're about 25 degrees, but everything is nice and hot because of the resin. Now 25 degrees isn't enough for the SUNLU toughness. You want to make sure you're closer to 30, and if you can, you're closer to 35. Now it's time to get some sense out of these testing results. First of all, we have the SUNLU ABS. The SUNLU ABS we tested in the first video. It is on the second spot of the pull test, right behind the Serial Fast. Then we have the Conjure Rigid and the SUNLU Standard, which was honestly a surprise for me. So the Standard really did great on the pull test. We have the Conjure Tough. Please note that these results are all really close. Then we have the SUNLU Water Washable with the Serial Blue hanging on, the Anycubic Eco, and then we have the SUNLU Toughness. So the SUNLU Toughness didn't really like the pull test. It's one of the weakest resins that I tested so far, except for the Serial Tenacious. So it acted a bit more like a tenacious resin without the massive stretching we had over the Tenacious. Then if we look at the results of the push test, things are starting to change up for all the resins. Suddenly the Conjure Tough is top place. Then we have the SUNLU Water Washable, and that was a really big surprise for me. The Water Washable did better than the ABS. Then we have the Rigid, the Blue, Anycubic Eco, the Fast, the Toughness, the Tenacious, and on the dead last place, the Standard resin. The Standard resin felt really brittle on the push test. There was almost no flex. It snapped almost immediately. So this was a really brittle test. For the toughness, the toughness didn't break. And here's an example. These are my test pieces from the toughness push test. And these didn't break in the machine. As you can see, there is a huge amount of flex in this resin, making it act more like a Conjure Rigid. The Rigid also flexed downwards. It did not break, so it almost has the same experience, except that the Rigid performed way better than the Toughness. The Rigid had about 14 kilos of force, and with the Toughness we only got about 9 kilos. We have an almost 50% better performance out of the Conjure Rigid than we get out of the Toughness. Going back to the pull test, we see that the Rigid had 38 kilos of force before failing, and the Toughness had about 27. It's a little bit less than 50%, but we can conclude that the Conjure Rigid really beat the pants out of the Toughness. And then in the next test, which is the thread strength test, we have still the Conjure Rigid first place, the Fast second place, the Conjure Tough, the Serial Blue. Then for the first time we see the SUNLU ABS with 19 Newton or 1.9 kilos about. The Toughness with the same results, the SUNLU Water Washable right behind it, the Serial Tenacious, the dead last, but that's to be expected because of its composition. Then we have the Anycubic Eco that failed the test. We could not get any readings out of the block. Same for the SUNLU Standard resin. We had the same kind of failure for that resin. Feels like the SUNLU Standard, a little bit the same as the Anycubic Eco in performance wise, except that the pull test on the Standard one was way better than the Eco. Then it's time for the stiffness test, and this was very interesting. I have put it in the chart. As you can see, we have the halfway point and we have the end point. The end point is the most forward position that the weight was hanging on. Halfway is halfway. And then we have steps out of 12. So we tested on 12 different spots with the same weight. The SUNLU Toughness only made it 7 out of 12 steps, with the halfway point of an already staggering 11 centimeters of sagging, with the final sag of 12 centimeters at 7 out of 12, and it kept sagging after that. Then we have the SUNLU ABS, which sagged 3.3 centimeters at the halfway point and 10 centimeters at the end point, and this is a really big difference. If you look at, for instance, the Siraya Fast, we had a 2.7 centimeters at the halfway point and only 6.3 centimeters at the end point. To give an even better example, we have the Siraya Blue with only 3.2 centimeters at the halfway point and 7.5 at the end point. So while the SUNLU ABS was quite stiff at the halfway point, it started sagging dramatically at the end point. The SUNLU water washable had a good results with 3 centimeters at the halfway point and 8.5 at the end point. The SUNLU standard resin was the absolute best with 1.5 centimeters of sagging and 5 centimeters of sagging at the end point. So this is a really stiff resin, which also tends to mean that it's a more brittle resin. So if you are looking for stiff resins, the SUNLU standard, Siraya Fast and Siraya Blue are one of the best in the stiffness tests. If you are looking for more flexible resins, then the Conjure Tough and the SUNLU Toughness acted in the same way by flexing under their own weight. Then we go to the pricing, and then everything changes for the best for SUNLU resins. Because of the pricing, which is on the lower side, this is a great value to buy. Most expensive resin we tested so far is the Tenacious from Siraya with Blue Tough behind it. Then we have the Fast, the Tough, the Rigid. Then the first SUNLU resin, the Toughness, which is going to launch at about $35.99 in the US. They wanted me to tell you that the first period that they are going to sell this resin is going to be a buy two get one, so you get about a $25 value per bottle, which isn't all that bad, but I like to look at the sale price at the moment you buy one bottle. So it's going to be $35.99 with the Anycubic Eco coming behind it. Then we have the SUNLU water washable, $30.99, the SUNLU ABS $28.99, and the SUNLU Standard $26.99. So these prices are absolutely amazing, and I think if I have to choose my personal favorites in the whole lineup, it's going to be the SUNLU ABS. Keep in mind that all these data points and numbers that I give you, these are just to give you an idea on how these resins react on a certain type of load. So the pricing is always going to be the first factor, I think, and then you are going to look at the price budget that you have, which resins perform the best for your type of printing. As an example, if you are only printing miniatures, almost everything is going to work for you. Even the shitty Anycubic Eco resin printed out some miniatures fine. It's only when you are getting to stuff like this, fine, long, intricate stuff that has to be perfect, then you see that the cheaper resins, or the, I have to say, more standard-ish resins are going to start warping on you. So you are losing your print quality. And then we have the Toughness fixing all these problems with warping, just like the SUNLU ABS. So it's up to you to look what properties you need for your resin application. If we look at the nut and bolt test, we had our very first successful print where we don't have to do anything and it just turns in like this. The SUNLU water washable performed really good on all the testing. The only problem I see is the warping of the resin, but the fine details, the accuracy, the resolution on the resin was really good. The standard resin was a lot worse in that regard, but I think it had a lot to do with the print moving and warping during the printing. Then the same with the SUNLU Toughness. We had some better results with the bolt. We get quite a few threads before we bind up. So this is a really good second place behind this and printer resolution. Alright, I think it's going to be it for me. If you made it so far, thank you very much for watching it. Make sure you're subscribed and you like this video to help me out with the algorithm. We have some more videos coming up. We are testing NFAB versus ACF, and I already have the 4th iteration of the resin testing gauntlet right here in the shop. It's a brand you never heard before. It's a manufacturer that also claims to be manufacturing resin for other brands, really known brands, but I cannot mention them, sadly enough. So that's gonna be it. Thank you for watching. I want to thank SUNLU for sending this resins to me. I want to thank you for watching this video, and guys, I see you in the next one. Oh yeah, while you're at it, there is a video right over here that you can watch, and make sure that you are subscribed right over there.